Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, we're looking at Luke chapter 11, especially verses 37 through 44, and actually through the end of the chapter here eventually, verse 54. But here in this passage, Jesus had just made the statement in verse, I believe it is 35, take heed that the light that is in you is not darkness. And then right after that, a Pharisee of all people who hate Jesus, trying to trick Jesus into doing or saying something where they could accuse him of breaking the law of Moses and prove him to be a false teacher, a false prophet, because they denied that he was the Messiah. They didn't accept him as the Son of God. And so Jesus is now in a Pharisee's house. He's been invited to come and dine, to eat with him. And Jesus accepts the invitation. Now that's almost beyond imagination. But then go a step further. When Jesus gets in there, this Pharisee noticed Jesus didn't wash his hands before he ate and starts thinking, see, if this man was a prophet, if this man was a true leader, he would have kept the law and washed his hands. Jesus knows what he's thinking, and he begins this message of saying, woe to you. He pronounced judgment, declared judgment. 3 woes to the Pharisee and 3 woes to the lawyers, the scribes of their day, who were the experts at the law, who knew the law of Moses, who were the teachers of the Bible, who knew it better than anybody else. And actually, they thought they knew it so well, no one else could really read it and study it and interpret it for themselves. Oh, almost sounds like some people and religious leaders in our world today. And so I just couldn't get over the fact that Jesus, his courage, of course, as the Son of God, and the nice, kind, gracious, loving Jesus denounces this man and his ways and his type of religion in his own house, And so we see that in these verses, and we've already talked about how that Jesus was pointing out their greed and pointing out their covetousness and their wickedness and their filthy hearts inside, when on the outside they claimed to be so clean. And I thought about Romans chapter 10, where the Apostle Paul said, brethren, my heart's desire and prayer for God is for Israel, that they might be saved. For I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness, are seeking to establish their own righteousness, and have not submitted to the righteousness of God. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness for everyone that believes. Man, that is so important, because we can have the Bible, we can know the Bible forward and backwards, but we have to remember, Paul would later write, the letter of the law kills, but it's the Spirit that gives life. And Jesus in Matthew chapter 5, I believe, verse 30, chapter 6, verse 23, he said, if the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? There's no greater deception than self-deception. And that reminded me of James chapter 1. And he says, if anyone among you thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless. It is vain. Because he said in the previous verse, you look into the perfect law of liberty, but then you're like a person working, but then you don't do it, but be you doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. So that was the Pharisees of Jesus' day. And I'm telling you, that's the condition of many religious leaders, Christians today. They've established their own righteousness. They call themselves Christians. They call themselves followers of God, and they have robed themselves in their own righteousness, but they have not the knowledge of God through Jesus Christ, because the only righteousness that really amounts to anything is the righteousness of Jesus Christ that comes through our coming as sinners and asking forgiveness of our sin. For the Bible says God made Jesus to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him. That's the righteousness we need. Don't be self-deceived. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be like the Pharisees. Make sure you have Jesus in your heart. God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.